giving the floor to Claudia, I'm going to present you just a brief info about our cost action. For some of you who may not be able to join from the beginning of these conferences, just to give you a short overview what we are doing and what is done so far. First of all, welcome to this session number 2, that is dedicated to the Sustainable Development Goals, national policy strategies, and education and training for young people in rural areas. Who we are, so basically this cost action is titled Rural Need Youth Network, and modeling the risk underlying rural needs social exclusion, and funding for this project is through the EU, through the Cost Association, and so far we are involved. There are involved 32 countries with more than 90 participants. With the main aim of this action is to develop a model of comprehension for rural needs, social exclusion risk, and protective factors. And the main outcome by 2024 is the Rural Need Youth Online Observatory. As we are a small group, these session rules are easy to follow. Just briefly to remind: mute your microphone if you are not speaking, turn off your camera if you need to take care of other matters, and use the chat room for questions during the presentation, but this may not be necessary because we are a small group, so we can easily manage all of this. And now I'm proud to invite Claudia Petrescu, who are coming from the Research Institute for Quality of Life from University of Bucharest, from Romania, to deliver her presentation titled An Evaluation of Central and East European Countries' Policies and Programs for Enhancing Needs Participation in Formal and Non-Formal Education. And Claudia, the floor is yours.
Hello to everybody. Just a remark. The institute is not from the University of Bucharest, it's from the Romanian Academy of Science. And yes, I work also as the associate professor at the University of Bucharest, but are two completely different institutions in Romania. Sorry, okay. It's not your fault. Okay, let's hope that, can you give me the possibility to share the screen, please?
Yes. I'm looking for it.
If you go on my name, the button more.
Okay.
And then I think you don't have the opportunity to, but you should have.
Yes, maybe Mariano was trying to fix the thing. So...
now it's okay.
Okay, thank you, Mariano, and thank you, Claudia.
Okay. So my research is at an incipient stage, let's say. When I did the abstract for the conference, I thought that I will have more information about these policies and programs for enhancing needs participation in formal and non-formal education. Unfortunately, it's not the case, but I will share with you what I succeeded to do till now. What I will present the aim and the methodology of the presentation, some small issues regarding the Central and Eastern European context regarding rural needs, and some conclusions, results from the research on policy measures adopted in Central and Eastern European countries to enhance rural needs participation in education. And of course, some lessons learned at the end. So first of all, what I want to do was to analyze in a comparative perspective the policies and programs for enhancing rural needs participation in formal and non-formal education in Central and East European countries, and I choose Bulgaria, Hungary, Poland, Estonia, Romania, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Slovenia, and to identify some factors that affect the implementation of these policies and programs at national level, because I observed that we have some different impact in each country. As methodology, I use public policy analysis of the main policies and programs dedicated to rural needs, and desk research and secondary data analysis of the main evaluation documents of national programs dedicated to rural needs. Okay. Some issues related to the context. Central and East European countries register the higher percent of rural needs. I put here all the countries that I choose in the analysis, and you can observe that the rural needs rates are higher than in other European country, and I put also EU 28, but also EU 15, because the comparison is between Central and Eastern European countries and Western countries mainly. Yes, we have a decrease in rural needs rates after 2016 due to economic development of the region and due to these different policies and programs dedicated to needs or vulnerable and socially excluded rural youth. The decrease was almost 10% in Bulgaria, and we have in Romania almost 8% decrease after 2016, which is an important decrease, but we still have two higher rates of rural needs. The higher rural needs rates in Central and East European countries are registered in Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, and Hungary. Because it's difficult to see the national spending on these measures, I look at the Youth Employment Initiative and how much we spend in these countries on measures dedicated to needs. And what I observed was that Romania has the lowest level of spending money for youth employment from youth employment initiatives. These youth employment initiatives includes measures dedicated to employment of needs, but also to education in order to increase their opportunities to enter the labor market. We have in this youth employment initiative almost 500,000 beneficiaries from rural areas in all Europe. And in these countries, we observe that the highest rate of beneficiaries from rural areas were in Poland, then in Bulgaria, Slovakia, and Hungary. Unfortunately, the other countries, even if they have a high number of needs in rural areas, they are not concerned to address measures for this specific category of needs. I look at when I look at the policy measures, I choose youth guarantee, and I look also at measures financed by European Social Fund and European Fund for Rural Development. If I look at youth guarantee, they address till now only young people between 15 and 24 years old in all these countries, even if the definition of needs include people between 15 and 34 years old. They include some specific measures on education, like training, apprenticeship, traineeship, further education leading to a qualification. I observed that some previous national measures for stimulating youth employment, especially on education, were introducing youth guarantee plans. For example, we have in Romania some measures regarding scholarships for vocational education and training. And I observed that they prefer to include these measures in youth guarantee plan in order to finance them through these European funds. Unfortunately, it was not the case because I think we have some bureaucratic issues, and they are not reported under a youth guarantee plan. They are reported also in European Social Fund measures because they, I don't know, they finance them more easy from this European Social Fund. The measures may vary depending on the national context, not very much, but they can vary. We have measures dedicated on general needs, not specific on rural needs, even if we have a high rate of rural needs. But we can observe that some countries like Poland had a specific focus on rural needs. The interventions were implemented different in each country, even if the main role was of the public employment service in each country. They coordinate all the actions. In some countries, the measures were implemented by public institutions, like was the case in Romania. All the measures were implemented by public institutions, but we have some examples in other Central and Eastern European countries where NGOs implemented also the measures, and we saw that some best practice cases were of those projects developed by NGOs. If we look at European Social Fund, we have here in the target group, besides all other target groups that are vulnerable people and so on, we have also young people in general education or in vocational education and training who are at risk of early leaving education, young people who have already left education and training and who do not have a qualification, low-skilled young people, and also young people who are NEET. We don't have a specific focus on rural areas, but we observe that we have some specific indicators in this program for intervention addressing the young people from rural areas. So the indicator means how many of the whole target group are from rural areas. The educational measures that are included in this programs, national programs financed by European Social Fund, include second chance school for those with a low education level. We have also scholarships to prevent early school leaving, career guidance and personal assistance for students, people in second grade education, apprenticeship and vocational training, and we observe that we have a lot of funds for this apprenticeship and vocational training. And we have also training courses for basic skills, competencies, and qualification required by employers, and also internship. If in European Employment Initiative, we observe that we have around 500,000 people as beneficiary from rural areas. Here we have more than 5 million beneficiaries from rural areas in all Europe. And The measures can vary from country to country depending on national regional context. So depends on the data that we have and the situation of vulnerable groups. We can have specific measures in each country. We have also some measures in European Agricultural Fund for rural development. But here the measures are dedicated to improve the educational infrastructure and services in rural areas, not specific to rural needs. We have some measures to increase educational competencies for young people. And here we have some training in various areas, but we have most of them in agriculture area, because we have these programs with young farmers. And also they include measures to empower young people to become entrepreneurs in rural areas. And here we have some trainings in order to do this. Okay, what are the main implications? We observed that these policies and programs have been implemented different in each Central and East European country. And that's why their impact varies a lot. Youth Guarantee had not a specific focus on rural needs. Although their rates are high, we have small number of measures dedicated to rural areas and rural needs. In programs financed by European Social Fund, we have more educational measures and a specific focus on rural areas, but we have still a lot of work to do in these areas. And as we discussed before, even if we observe that the rural needs rates decrease in the last years, I think after this pandemic situation, the situation will not be so good at the end. And we have a lot of things to do in order to increase their employability and education also. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia, for a nice presentation. And I'm now opening a discussion because we are still missing two presenters. So we now have time for discussion, some questions and answers, not specifically to Claudia, but to all groups. So please ask the question, or if you have some comments to Claudia's presentation.
You know, it's the ideal situation to have only one presentation in a slot, so I can have a lot of comments in order to improve it and to make it better.
Yes, that's the better side.
Yes.
So any of participants, you can write down the question into the chat room if you don't want to speak it on loud. I do have a few questions. The one at the end, you mentioned something about this COVID situation. Do you have maybe information? Is there already planned or implemented some kind of strategies that are focused on rural needs regarding the COVID impact or?
I cannot find this information in on internet, on the website of each national public employment authority or other information. I know that at the European level, they discuss now the youth guarantee in order to improve it. And maybe they will include also some measures for rural people, rural needs, and also rural vulnerable people, because I saw that they already have indicators regarding beneficiary people from rural areas, which means that they will look more carefully at this target group.
Nice. I'm asking that because there was some World Bank report for Bosnia and Herzegovina saying that the youth population will be highly impacted by the ongoing COVID situation, and I'm wondering what other countries are already doing in that sense, because in Bosnia and Herzegovina the youth are not so much into the focus of policy makers and decision makers. Maybe some other colleagues could also share some thoughts on it. Maybe they knew about some strategies or measures specifically focused on youth.
Can I share something, Alen?
Sure, Tatiana.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations, Claudia, for a presentation and for the whole overview of the all policies in the countries you mentioned. One suggestion and one kind of reflection question. The suggestion is that you can use, I don't know if you know, Youth Wiki. That's an online encyclopedia, and you can have some information about the measures in all countries in the different policy dimensions, and could be a great help for your work. And another question, kind of reflection, is that I'm talking about the case of Portugal. I think we have a problem regarding what is youth guarantee measures, because not all of them, as most of them, these measures are some kind of programs that are implemented in the country for several years. This is to say that youth guarantee is a package that has a new package involvement, but the measures are the same that already existed in the country. I don't know if this happens in all countries, but in Portugal it happens. And regarding regarding young people living in rural areas, there's no specific measure. We only have one measure for fishermen and for rural young people, but is a measure that has more than 10 years of 15 years, and that hasn't been updated, not at all, and that hasn't been in account the different dynamics that young people face in these last years. So I don't know if what is your impression, if this is something that is happening in all countries, because, for example, I know that in Spain, youth guarantee is implemented in a different way. They use enterprises and private sector to involve young people in or to integrate young people in the labor market. Here in Portugal, we cannot say that youth guarantee brings new measures. They are the same, but with a different package, this has to say. Thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Alen.
Okay, thank you, Tatiana. You mentioned that you want to share something on screen. I think you have options now if you are still interested.
No, I didn't. No,
okay.
I so misunderstood. I didn't say.
Okay,
no,
okay.
So
I thought it is some kind of slide or something, but
no.
Okay, thank you for your insights, and I'm looking forward. Maybe some other participants would like also to share some thoughts about the programs in specific countries. Of course, if they are eager to share with us.
Maybe Stefan will like to add something, because he did already presentation of the programs and policies that they have in Slovenia. What I want to answer to Tatiana, yes, we have this situation like in Portugal in many countries, where they I don't know, seemed like all measures are put together in this youth guarantee plan. And for example, in Romania, I cannot understand why we spend so low amount of money if we can spend this money on these measures. We have problems with scholarships, for example, for vocational and educational training. The government did not pay this scholarship to students due to the fact that they stay at home and we have education at distance. We have the opportunity to pay the public transport from rural areas to the vocational and educational schools and so on, but we spend only few money on these measures. But it's not only the case in Romania. We observe that we have this situation also in other countries, but we have also some countries with new programs, new measures. If I look at Estonia, for example, I saw that they implement very nice program, pops up, something like this, which is complementary to youth guarantee. The ladies from Estonia that we have in working group 2, they present all this in a national fiche regarding programs and policies implemented in Estonia. And when I looked at to understand better what the program they implement, I saw this program, which is implemented not by a public authority. It's the coordinator is the Association of Youth NGOs from Estonia, and they have good results on it. But if I look at the countries that have higher rates of NEETs, we observe that the measures are not so effective, or their impact are not so good. Maybe because they implement old measures which are not effective in the past. Maybe they should change and did another plan. I don't know.
Yes, thank you, Claudia. Yeah, my next question was, in fact, about shall developing countries implement the modern strategies to tackle the issue of youth? Are they ready to implement that kind of the measures, or they should stick with the traditional one? Difficult question.
If we look at the impact, maybe we should change a little bit the policies and programs, at least a little bit, not completely, but to change them. I don't know, you have not so many space to negotiate all the issues with the European Commission when you define the operational programs in each country. But if you have data, you have evidence, maybe you can negotiate better the measures that you propose for each country in order to have a better impact. But it's my opinion. I don't know. When I look at what we did in our programs, sometimes I wonder if they look at the data or they use evidence in order to develop new measures. Okay, Stefan, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will try to also clarify something. So actually, I was not at the beginning of the Claudia presentation because I was, and then I was nothing, and then I suddenly try again, and it was open. So I didn't listen from very beginning. So I think that what I have listened was nicely presented. Actually, that here are two main issues. One is education, and another is employment. So now question how to bridge these two together. Now about COVID, what was mentioned, I think, I'm not sure that countries have very specific programs, but they use now this economic recovery budget, which is rather high. and it is coming out of regional development, mostly cohesion and this. And here is the question, this is much more like entrepreneurial project, or many countries, they try to do some infrastructure projects. So they will not, probably they will not a lot of tackle this needs problem of rural areas. What we will stay probably again are these traditional programs which Claudia was explaining. So on education, what is coming from Ministry of Education in together with European Social Fund. And about employment is the Ministry of Labor and Family and Social Affairs, where in many countries, I think it's not only in Slovenia, but Slovenia, it's important is active employment policy. So how they are implementing this is also different from country to country. But in Slovenia, we have two levels. One is at the state level, and another is at the local level. We have these local employment offices or local offices for unemployment. And they try to work together with local stakeholders. That can be like institutions who are working on education, skill improvement trainings, but can work also together with the municipalities. However, in many countries, including in Slovenia, problem is that we have relatively small municipalities, and power of these local communities is not so strong. And also it varies from municipalities to municipality, not only according to the size, but also level of development. So in places where level of development is higher, they usually do better than where is more needs which are less developed. So they are again somehow excluded from this. Also at the national level, even if it's a small country like Slovenia. And I would say that can be also a problem in other countries, because even these different kind of initiatives, they try somehow bottom-up approach. And if you don't have local capacity, either to prepare the program or to co-finance this, you are again somehow in a worse situation than others. So that's again somehow how to empower local communities in this local employment development, and also in mismatching the skills and so other problems, many other problems. Of course, there are some good examples, what also was explained today by Claudia and also by Emre, that we can find in some countries how they are doing this, even if situation is not very favorable, but it can be, I think that's what can be also the aim of our project, bring out some good cases where we can learn out of this.
Okay.
So it is still a lot of work, what Claudia mentioned, but situation is rather different, and also local environments are different from country to country. Even if we have some common policies in the European Union, they are working slightly different from country to country, and also in implementation. So there is more heterogeneity than we sometimes think.
Yes, true. Thank you, Professor Bojnec, for this nice overview.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, the second presenter, Dr. Manas Behera, join us. And please share your presentation, and I will use this opportunity to introduce you to the audience. So Manas Behera, and forgive me if I pronounce your name wrongly, is going to present the title, is going to present the paper, SDG 4, Inclusive Higher Education and Neoliberalism in India. Manas Behera is head of Department of Political Science in Ramadevi Women's University, Odisha in India. So please, the floor is yours. And thank you for coming, and sorry for the technical issues that you have.
Thank you so much. Good evening to all of you, because it is evening here in India. So thanks for allowing me. There are some network issues for which I could not join in the beginning. So how much time, sir, you are allowing for my presentation?
You have 15 minutes to present, if possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So actually, I am thankful to the organizers for giving me scope in the international fora and space to have a discussion on education in India with a rural aspect. So my paper is SDG, Sustainable Development Goals 4, and Neo-liberalism in India. So my argument is that inclusive education is the only alternative to bridge the gap between rural and urban divide. So rural youth who are aspiring, and this aspiration has been multiplying with the onset of globalization, and many parents, particularly from the marginalized and excluded groups, they try to come to the forum of education, and public education system is the only channel, only space, only avenue because of that affordability. But on the other hand, the neoliberal globalization is a commoditized education. So when higher education becomes a commodity in the new so who afford higher education as a commodity in the market, they are automatically excluded from the privileges of education. This is more relevant in a South Asian country like India and also all developing countries, because they suffer from multiple forms of inequalities, exploitation and marginalization like caste, class, gender, region, language, and rural-urban divide. So if you see the aspirations of the rural youth, they now want to enter the global market of job. They want to migrate. They want to know English. They want to study English. They want to be skilled. So if public funded education is being weakened under a new liberal discourse, a new liberal paradigm of development, then this is exclusive and it will not be allowing these young rural population to enter into the higher education space. So what my argument is that in a developing country like India, not only higher education empowers rural youth, but also legitimizes the political system and the state system by rural youth who are marginalized rural youth through higher education to enter into the state structure, into state bureaucracy, into state politics. So that's why there is a two-way process. By a public funded higher education system, the state legitimizes itself, the state democratizes itself by allowing marginalized into its space. So that's a bigger question which is normally not discussed, not allowed to be discussed in a neoliberal paradigm of higher education particular. So in India, what is happening? In last 2 decades, we have been observing a set of policies from Manmohan Singh government to Modi's government. What we are observing? We are observing a set of policies in which you will find there is a growing privatization, growing commercialization, growing commoditization of entire higher education system. And recently, there is a new education policy which talks of a very high-sounding radical language. And the middle class is being trapped. There are some good things in these radical languages, but actually behind that, there are authoritarian structures, huge authoritarian structures. So far as governance of higher education is concerned, we have 3 pillars of higher education: access, quality, and equality. So if you want to ensure quality without access, it becomes meaningless and elitist. And if you ensure access, you have to ensure quality. So you have to go equity, access, and quality. It's you have to see in a holistic manner. But the present new education policy proposes a set of tectonic shifts in the higher education structure by which there will be growing commercialization of higher education. So this is more so relevant.
Sorry for stopping you. Did you maybe share your presentation, because we can't see it?
No, I don't have this PowerPoint PPT. You are talking of PPT, sir?
Okay, no, it's fine. I was just wondering, maybe you presented, but we couldn't see it. Okay, just go ahead and sorry for that.
Okay, I'll continue, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sure. So I don't have this PowerPoint presentation. I cannot share it right now. There are some network issues. So I'm in oral mode. I am presenting my paper. Next is this new education policy is intended to recreate the privileges for the elite groups who are not in the mainstream of higher education. So you will see the dominance of monopoly finance capital is in the higher education sector. If you go by the reports of Dale Carnegie Foundation and Birla Ambani report in India and in America, you'll find their report says higher education offers a opportunity for investment of the monopoly capital for profit making. So if this will continue, what will happen? The worst affected with the rural youth. Rural youth are a disadvantaged groups. I will give the example. That will be interesting for the entire global audience present here. I was taking online classes of my political science honor students. One tribal girl had to walk 2 miles to attend the class in the hilly area to get access to the phone to attend the class. So this is a digital divide. And when you go for privatization, digital divide will be more alarming, particularly for the rural. So what my paper argues in these 4-5 pages is that, number one, we need a public funded education system in a developing country like India in a hegemonic position, so that access, equity and quality can be ensured, particularly for the marginalized groups like rural. Number two, you cannot ensure access, equity and quality by a privatized hegemonic education system in which money matters and in which education becomes a commodity available in the market to be bought by the consumers. Number three, the rural-urban divide. The marginalized groups who are entering into the job market, who are entering into the structure, who are challenging the inequalities like caste, like gender, like community, like region, like language, they will be unable to do that because of the lack of access to education in the absence of a public funded education system. And in a global phenomenon, I will see in last 10 years or last 1 decade, throughout the world, you will see there is a growing attack by the neoliberal capitalist forces on education. This is a reflection of the crisis of monopoly finance capital, because monopoly finance capital is searching for new avenues of investment, and health and education is giving opportunity for them for reinvestment here, for new investment here. And in the pandemic, we have seen the fate of public funded health system. So my argument is that if you want to create opportunities, more opportunities, which will be inclusive for these categories. So I have some suggestions finally. One is public funded education systems should be strengthened through more budgetary allocations and governance measures. Second is autonomy of institutions of higher education needs to be restored. They cannot be controlled, regulated as proposed in the new education policy. Third is commercial institutions in higher education should be controlled, regulated by the government, and must not be allowed to occupy a hegemonic position in the entire system of education. Number four is governance in higher education should be based on federalism and principles of democracy. Number five is the teachers are central to any education system. They are the second major stakeholder. Unless you involve themselves in policy making, it is not going to be fruitful. That's why teachers must be brought to the focus of the entire higher education structure by giving them good service conditions, by ensuring their quality, and by ensuring their protection. Then higher education should be discouraged. Policies in higher education should be based on equity. And next is the course structure should be scientific and be based on constitutional values and based on scientific temper, on rationality. Then national bodies in higher education should have representation from states and a teacher organization. That means in a democratic dialogue, the teacher organization should be given space for interventions. So finally, what I am to say, there is a correspondence between a given historical period, the social relations of production and the social relations of education. Here I am putting balls and gentis, and this is relevant throughout the world. And in the post-pandemic situation, there will be growing attack on the public-funded higher education system, and this must be registered if you want to ensure equity, equality, justice, quality, access in education, particularly for the rural youth, then we have to make public funded education system more vibrant, more inclusive, more qualitative by giving more scope to teachers, students, as well as to the funding pattern. Sir, do I have any more time, or shall we finish it here? Sir,
you have few more minutes if you need.
Ji, please, sir. Sorry.
Yes, please go ahead. You have up to 5 minutes.
Okay. So the attempts towards pushing the neoliberal agenda in the field of higher education creates a paradigm shift in India in last 10-20 years. So what we are observing, the National Regulatory Authority is a huge structure created in the proposed new education policy that will over-centralize policies on education, policies on equity, policies on governance. So what I want to say, pedagogy is a science. It should not be left to the bureaucratic mindsets or bureaucratic interventions. So what we need a dialogue, democratic dialogue, interactive dialogue between students, parents, teachers, and government institutions. And we need regular interventions to make the entire system of education inclusive, so that our purpose must be to include the excluded, already excluded. But what is happening in India, the group of people who are poor, who are women, who are rural, who are minorities, and who are culturally marginalized, they don't have equal access like other upper class people to higher education system. We have to increase that. But what we are doing right now in India, we are reversing the process, and this reversal, complete reversal, tectonic shift has been reflected in the new education policy by the present central government, and that carries very dangerous regressive measures which will affect the access of rural young people, poor people to higher education system. So the project of nation building, the constitutional values, the dreams created during the national liberation struggle in India before 47, all will be derailed. So the constitutional vision that we have created in India to provide higher education, to democratize the state, to democratize society, to democratize the family space, and every available space will be failing. So the present proposal for a new liberal structure in higher education is not only dangerous for the higher education itself or for its access, equity, and quality, but also will be regressive for the entire nation building project and entire democratic project of creating democratic spaces, sustaining democratic spaces, and defending democratic spaces. That is the biggest challenge. So higher education creates opportunities for defense of human rights, basic rights of people. Unless our rights, they cannot defend their rights. So who is losing the rights? Whose rights are being attacked by the state and other agencies? So if they will have no access to education or limited access to education, they will be unable to defend their rights. So there is an interplay of forces, democratic forces and authoritarian forces in the new perspective on higher education. So my final conclusion is that we must be very cautious of that, and there must be every attempt to strengthen, defend, continue the public funded education system. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Behera. And now other participants can ask the question if they want. And in meantime, I would like just to say that you nicely highlight several important factors that are something that must be done in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's the title of this session. And in fact, in order to improve the situation regarding the youth and the other problems that we mentioned during this session and the sessions before. So is there any specific questions regarding the presentation or the speech of Dr. Behera?
I have a question. It's okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, my name is Prosperi. I'm involved in a university in rural area, And recently, with the pandemic situation, we had been forced with online teaching for our students, and we observed, at least personally, I had good achievements with them. And of course, there are some divide among the people who are living in the village served with internet efficient internet connection, and people more far away. But anyway, at least all of them have accomplished all the teaching program. So I was just I'm curious to listen about Dr. Behera, who talked right now. What is his opinion regarding the potential of internet education, online education, also for the poor, in case, let's say, government will provide basic infrastructure, let's say Wi-Fi connection, which is at least not so much expensive compared to line, and also providing basic computers, and investing more on contents specifically devoted for these people. I just I'm curious to listen about possible opportunities in India. Thank you.
Thank you. In meantime, we lost our okay, he's back. Maybe he will reply to you regarding the question about the access to the internet. But I share your thoughts. I'm also involved in teaching at the university level, and we do realize that some of the students have the issues with following the online teaching during the pandemic. Yeah, sure, go ahead. But we can't hear you right now. I lost again. So this is the issue that we talk a little bit about.
Exactly.
So the infrastructural problems. And Professor Boynets, just before he leaves this room, he also speak a little bit about it, that some countries have the weak or poor infrastructure that can't follow the modern requirements or modern strategies that could be implemented in order to improve the quality of life or education for NEET or rural population in general. And Behera is back again, but
am I audible now? Hello?
Yeah.
Now, sir.
Connection is bad. For some reason, we can't hear you, or we
That is
can.
not. Am I audible now, sir? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Am I audible now? Yes, I am answering sir's question that there is digital divide all over the world, and in developing countries like India, that is more. So if government provides equipments, instruments for online education with network facilities, there is no problem. But physical classes, presence of teachers, that cannot be replacement. So there cannot be a replacement of physical contact or interaction between students and teachers. So we are still at the infant stage so far online education is concerned. But if there will be online education, there is every chance that the players will occupy or control the online education and make it for profit. So if online education is used for profit, then that will not help the students or cannot bring equity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Behera.
Thank you.
And now we are almost out of time, and I will just use these last few minutes to say thank you for being here to actively participate and share your thoughts about different topics regarding the issues of youth, especially from rural areas. And I will kindly ask you now. We have a small break for the lunch, refreshment, and so on. And then we can continue, and please join us again after this small break. Thank you again for participating and being here.
Sir, is this session over?
Sorry?
Sir, our session is over, sir.
Yes, this session is
Our session is over.
Yes, yes. But
Okay,
the new
thank you.
one
Sir. Can I
starts.
leave and join again?
Yes, sure, sure. You can leave and
Okay, thank
join
you.
again.
Thank you. So I have some network asking.
I couldn't
Okay,
hear
thank
you.
you.
I couldn't hear you. The connection was bad. So can you repeat, please? Or to write down? And other participants, if you have some questions, you can write it down, and maybe we can answer it later on during the question and answer session at the end of the conference. And if not, then we are starting again according to the schedule at 3 p.m. Central European Time. So I'm looking forward to see you again.
See you, Alen. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. See you.